The first cats were brought to Australia in 1804. The wild cat population today is in the tens of millions. In Tasmania, there are thought to be twice as many cats as there are people. Feral cats are also chewing their way through other species. Cats eat small mammals, lizards and insects, traditionally the prey of animals native to Australia.
Everything's interlinked, so if you take one thing out of that linkage, you get severe effects either one way or the other. Australia has the worst history of mammal extinctions in the world. Feral cats remaining at or increasing numbers are only going to push that extinction record further and further.
G'day guys and welcome to Aussie English. My objective here is to teach you guys the English spoken down under. So whether you want to speak like a fair income Aussie, or you just want to understand what the flippin' hell we're on about when we're having a yarn, you've come to the right place. So sit back, grab a cuppa and enjoy Aussie English. Alright, guys, welcome to this episode of Aussie English. I hope you're going well. I hope you're having a great week. I was having a good week, but it has quickly become an average week, and I guess I'll let you in on what's happened recently. Recently, Kel and I have been looking at houses, and so it's sort of a long story, and in fact, I recorded an episode last night, with my mate James about what it's like saving for a deposit and trying to buy a house here in Australia as an Australian. And hopefully that episode will be out soon, and it'll help you guys if you guys are thinking about buying property in the future. But anyway, Kel and I were thinking about buying a house, hopefully this year, because we were trying to get out of the rental market and trying to spend the money that we would otherwise spend on rent on paying off a mortgage instead, right? So the money's going towards us and our future instead of into the pocket of someone else. However, a spanner has been thrown into the works. So I went and saw the bank, and they had me fill out a bunch of documents to send off to their financial department in the city. And I got a call today, and it looks like we can't borrow very much money. So I was assuming that based on my current income, at least of this year, that I would be able to get a certain amount. Except the problem was that the bank requires the last two tax returns that you've done, and I haven't done this year's. And so the last two tax returns that I did, I think 2017-18 and 2016-17, were abysmal. They were very, very low tax returns in terms of income for those years. And so ultimately the guy was like, well, we can lend you about $100,000, but that's about it. Can you get anywhere near where you're currently living for $100,000? And I was like, ooh, the house we're living in now is probably $800,000, so no chance. Anyway, spanner in the works, you know, it's a sort of hiccup. It's a bit of a hurdle that we're going to have to get over. I guess we'll just have to keep working hard for the next few years, you know, work on our income, try and save a deposit, and then hopefully in a few years we'll be able to apply again and get enough money to buy a house. But yeah, far out. That was out of left field. I had high hopes, but my hopes were dashed when I had a call today with the I don't know what his job would be, like a loan advisor from the bank from Westpac, and yeah, got a dose of reality. Anyway, guys, that's where I am currently, a bit down in the dumps, but hopefully I will cheer myself up and give you guys an amazing episode today. So, all right, welcome to the Aussie English podcast, guys, the number one podcast for anyone and everyone wanting to get their English to an advanced level through the lens of Australian English. Obviously, you're going to learn a whole heap about Australian English, about Australian culture, about Australian news, current affairs, and history, whilst also taking your English to the next level. So let's get into this episode. The intro scene there was a clip from Al Jazeera English, and there'll be a link in the transcript so that you can go and check out that video on their YouTube channel and watch the entire thing. But it was about feral cats in Australia and how they're proving to be a bit of a problem for Tasmanian devils. So you guys may or may not know that in Australia we have quite a lot of feral, invasive and pest species. So species that have come from elsewhere that are actually a big problem in the native environment here in Australia for plants, for animals, for even people. So yeah, the expression today is pet peeve. And because of pet, I was thinking, cats, dogs, and then I thought, I could talk to you guys about feral, pest, and invasive species in Australia because it's important to understand their role or the issue that they are in the Australian environment. So anyway, the joke today. Let's get into a joke. I was thinking pets, animals. How can I come up with a joke that's related to this? So here's the joke, and it's about frogs, okay? Hopefully you like this. And, for anyone who doesn't know, the cane toad in Australia is a big problem species, pest species, and it is a frog. All right. What happens to a frog's car when it breaks down? What happens to a frog's car when it breaks down? Breaks down is like malfunctions, right? If the engine suddenly goes kaput, or, wheel falls off, the car's broken down. So what happens to a frog's car when it breaks down? It gets towed away. Right? You get it? It gets towed away. So, so stupid. The pun here is on the word toad, right? A toad is a type of frog. And frogs that are toads tend to have like leathery skin, right? Like cane toads. They are the kind of animals that witches use in their potions, right? Toads. But the pun here is with the word towed as in a tow truck tows a car away when it breaks down, right? So it takes that car somewhere, it pulls the car, it tows the car away to be repaired, right? So what happens to a frog's car when it breaks down? It gets towed away. So today's expression, guys, is a pet peeve. I wonder if you guys have got any pet peeves. This one comes from Rogelio in the Aussie English Facebook group. So that's open now, guys. Come and join the group. Just search Aussie English on Facebook. I'm trying to post a lot in there to get you guys talking, discussing Australia, discussing things about English, and to just facilitate your improvement in English. So Rogelio suggested this one. It was a really good one. A pet peeve. It can also be a pet aversion or a pet hate. Okay? Pet peeve, pet aversion, pet hate. So let's go through the definitions in the expression a pet peeve. So pet. Most of you guys, I think, will know a pet is a domesticated animal kept for pleasure, right? Rather than utility. So you might have livestock or farm animals, but they don't tend to be pets because they have like a purpose. They're there to work. Whereas a pet is more this domesticated animal like a cat or a dog. It doesn't really work. It just hangs out with you, for company. It can also be used to talk about a spoiled child, right? They can be a pet. So a pampered and usually spoiled child. And this is why we call children at school who are goody two-shoes, who are always trying to impress the teacher and do the right thing and, dob on other kids. They are a teacher's pet, right? A teacher's pet. But in this case, in the case of a pet peeve, pet here is an adjective. It's not a noun. And it expresses fondness or endearment. So something that you love, something that you're fond of, something that is dear to you is a pet thing. And a peeve, the noun a peeve, is a feeling or mood of resentment. So something you really dislike or you don't like or you resent, right? I've got a few peeves. And so the definition of the expression is a pet peeve. It is a minor annoyance that an individual identifies as particularly irritating to them, right? So to a greater degree than would be expected based on the experiences of other people. So it's kind of like when they overreact to something. So pet peeves often involve specific behaviors of someone else that are really annoying, and often close people like spouses or relatives or friends, okay? A pet peeve, a really annoying thing. So the origin of this expression, so the noun peeve, meaning annoyance, is believed to have originated in the US back in the early 20th century, and it derived by back formation from the adjective peevish, which means ill-tempered, right? Peevish. And that dates all the way back to the 14th century. So the term pet peeve was first introduced to a large readership of a comic strip, The Little Pet Peeve, in the Chicago Tribune that came out during the early 1900s. And the strip was created by a cartoonist called Frank King. Now, King's little pet peeves were humorous critiques of generally thoughtless behaviours and nuisance frustrations of other people. So examples included people reading the intertitles in silent films aloud, or cracking an egg open to smell it, to see if it had gone rotten, maybe backseat drivers, so people who sit behind you in a car and tell you where to go. Those were his pet peeves, or his examples of pet peeves, okay? So that's where it comes from. So let's go through now a few examples of how I would use the expression a pet peeve in day-to-day English. So example number 1. Imagine that you're the boss of a business and you hire someone new to your team to take care of a specific task. So the person's got really good credentials, they're definitely qualified for the job, and you hire them. However, when they start, it turns out that they're almost always running late to work. And this is your pet peeve. You hate tardiness. It's incredibly annoying. It riles you up. It ruffles your feathers. It rubs you the wrong way. It infuriates you when your employees show up late to work. It's your biggest pet peeve. Example number 2. Imagine you love to go surfing. You know, each weekend you go to a local beach at Ocean Grove or Torquay to catch a few waves, you know, enjoy the ocean and de-stress after a long week's work. So there's a certain etiquette when you go surfing, whereby when multiple surfers catch the same wave, the surfer who's furthest back, closest to the break of the wave, has right of way, and the other surfers should bail off the wave and give him or her priority. So say you're trying to catch waves one day, you know, there's a huge 6-footer wave that comes in, it's breaking perfectly, you paddle really hard, you get up on it, and someone cuts in front of you. So they're further along the wave than you are and should give right of way to you, but they don't, so you've got to bail, and it makes you furious. It drives you crazy. It bugs you, because it's one of your biggest pet peeves. When people don't follow surf etiquette. That's your biggest pet peeve. The last example, a classic pet peeve, probably for most people, including myself, is when people eat with their mouths open. You know, when they do that. That's one of the most annoying things for me, especially when it's incredibly quiet wherever you're eating. So that used to drive me bonkers. It used to drive me up the wall. I remember living in a house, a share house back in Melbourne, where I had a few roommates, and one of them was a chef, and he'd always come home late at night. And whilst I was in my own room, right, I wasn't even in the kitchen, I had the door closed, I was in my room watching TV, and I could still hear him eating because he was so loud. He would be chewing, he'd be burping, he'd be making all kinds of bodily noises, and it used to drive me nuts. It would bother the hell out of me because it was my pet peeve. It was really grating. Ugh, what a pet peeve. So there you go, guys. A pet peeve is a minor annoyance that a certain individual identifies as particularly irritating to them, right? Pet peeves often involve specific behaviours of someone close to you, a friend or a family member, right? Ugh, that thing is so annoying. So as usual, guys, let's go through a little listen and repeat exercise, and this will be your chance to practice your pronunciation, okay? So listen and repeat after me. Let's go. A pet. A pet peeve. 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 Oh, there's a few good things going on there in terms of pronunciation and connected speech. So you might notice when I say a, the word a, when I pronounce it by itself, I'll say that like a vowel. A, right? The vowel sound A. But when it's in front of another word, it's a reduced word, right? So I don't pronounce it fully. I would say instead, like a schwa kind of sound, a pet, right? A pet. The other thing that I'll point out here is that the consonant at the end of the word pet, because it's a stop consonant, a T sound, when followed by another consonant, like the P at the start of the word peeve, the T at the end of pet isn't released, okay? So you'll hear that it's not fully pronounced. My tongue goes into the position to make the T sound, it stops, and then I make the P sound without releasing the T sound. Okay, so have a listen. A pet peeve. A pet peeve. So the T kind of gets stopped halfway through and I go straight into the P sound. You'll see this all the time with letters like T, D, P, B, G, and K. Okay? A pet peeve. So now let's go through the sentence. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. And I'll conjugate through all the different pronouns. Okay? So listen and repeat after me and try and remember those connected speech tips. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. It's one of your biggest pet peeves. It's one of her biggest pet peeves. It's one of his biggest pet peeves. It's one of our biggest pet peeves. It's one of their biggest pet peeves. It's one of its biggest pet peeves. Good work. And you might notice there too, what's happening with the word biggest? Do you hear the T there? Or is the T also getting stopped because of the P at the start of the word pet? Right? If I say, it's one of his biggest pet peeves. Biggest pet peeves. The T is doing the same thing. It's stopping. We're not releasing it fully. Biggest pet peeves. Okay? So doing that in English, any form of English, any dialect of English, especially when speaking really quickly, makes you sound much more natural, okay? So pay attention to stop consonants like T, D, P, B, K, and G at the ends of words when followed by consonants. And notice the linking between the words it's one of, it's one of, it's one of, and then also words like her and his, the H will disappear there. That's H deletion. It's one of her. It's one of his. And you'll notice it links with the V sound in of. It's one of her. It's one of his. And we also do this for our and its because they both start with vowels as well. It's one of our. It's one of its. All right, so enough about pronunciation. I hope that helps you guys today. Make sure that you have a listen out for the Aussie Fact episode where I'm going to be talking to you about all of the worst invasive pest and feral species in Australia. So it's going to be a really good episode about animals and about how they affect the natural environment here. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you then. G'day, mate. Thanks for listening to the Aussie English podcast. If you'd like to boost your English whilst also supporting the podcast and allowing me to continue to bring you awesome content, please consider joining the Aussie English Academy at www.aussieenglish.com.au. You'll get unlimited access to the premium podcast as well as all of my advanced English courses, and you'll also be able to join 3 weekly speaking calls with a real English teacher. Thanks so much, mate, and I'll see you soon.